We are back with Don Iannone, and he is the Executive Director of Ashtabula County Growth Partnership. And you've been there for about a year?
Yes, coming up on a year. August of 2014, I joined the organization.
I told Andy to bring a cake in, but he doesn't listen to me.
No cakes necessary, I'm dieting.
Okay. Tell us, first of all, Growth Partnership's been around for a while, but tell us what it is and what it does.
The Growth Partnership has been around for 26 years, and what it does is
Well, I remember when it started. It's been 26 years.
Yeah, it's gone fast.
Yeah.
But we really are working to develop jobs and businesses in the county and strengthen communities, and I think we've got an exciting new plan that we put in place. It was adopted by the board just about 6 months ago, so we're off and running, and we've got some real priorities and trying to put our resources into those to get something done.
Okay, and tell me about your background.
My background, I've been in economic development for 35 years. I've been doing this for a long time, and quite by accident. I came out of graduate school at Case Western Reserve University, had an internship, and was in the School of Management, and had no idea that there was such a field as economic development, but took an internship and have been in the field ever since. And basically, I've had the opportunity to work across the country in economic development. I've worked in 31 states and done a lot of work in Canada as well as the United States. So that's during the consulting part of my career. And I live in Bracknell. My wife and I have been there about 5 years. And my wife is an executive at the Cleveland Clinic.
Oh.
So yeah, she has lots of interesting stories to tell as well because of all the changes in healthcare and medicine.
Yeah. That is a very friendly place.
Yeah.
I know the Cleveland Clinic, everybody there is like all the employees are there to help you get where you need to go. And you need help because that place is so massive.
You do. And they take patient experience and patient care very seriously.
Yeah.
Which I think you could say the same thing is needed in economic development. That we need to take good care of our businesses and take good care of our citizens as workers and certainly our communities. So I think the whole concept of patient care carries over to client and customer care when you think about the economic development field.
Well, some of you said you had some plans in work or projects or whatever. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Sure. We adopted a plan that's called Forward Ashtabula County, and this is really about moving the county forward. And there's really 4 priorities that are associated with the plan. First is really to grow the next generation of growth companies. Now, what does that mean? That means certainly helping companies like Premix, Chromaflow, Crystal, Molded Fiberglass, Conneaut Leather, General Aluminum, all those companies to continue to grow in the county. But it is about growing the next generation of companies that are coming up. And I think that when you look at companies that are in the 10 to 50 employee range, they are really creating most of the jobs here. And that's what we call the Stage 2 companies. So we plan to do more work with the Stage 2 companies into the future. Second priority really ties into that, which is really growing the workforce and making it stronger, retaining our young talent, and recruiting new talent, because in the absence of workforce and talent, companies won't grow here.
That is a problem, isn't it?
It's a problem everywhere, and what's happened is that basically we're at full employment when you look at the unemployment rate. So it means that the supply of workers falls short of really what the demand is by employers.
Really?
Yes, and particularly when you get into highly skilled fields. And some examples of that would be industrial maintenance, which we just worked with ATEC to form an industrial maintenance training program. And
I did a video on it.
You did, that's right. Yeah.
And
So you know all about
really
that.
hopefully everybody watched the video and took notes and can go back and look at their notes and everything. But no, that is a fabulous, I don't know if fabulous is a good word, but it is an excellent, looks like an excellent program.
Very well received. By both
the employees.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, if you don't grow the supply of occupations like this, businesses can't expand. They can't take on new product lines. They can't do what they need to do to be successful.
Well, just don't want to. Oh, I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But
It's a conversation.
Right. Exactly. In the video, I'm talking to a young man. He looks like maybe he's in his early 20s, and he's hired. I cannot remember exactly where. Mm-hmm. But the first thing he does is scrape ice off from the parking lot. Okay. And now he's going to school at A-Tech to learn some high-tech skills that I said, are you hoping this will keep you employed? He said yes. So, I mean, this is a program that's taking somebody that's scraping ice off from the parking lot and giving him some real skills that it's going to keep him working and keep him a valued employee. I mean, that's
a wonderful story. And it's just that. I mean, and what happens is that he becomes more valuable to the company. He makes more money. He really works into a career. So he moves from just having a job to moving into a career that's the future. So and we want more career-oriented jobs in the county. That's really critical. So the talent and workforce area is incredibly important. And I think we have to really strengthen how we go about doing that. One of the things is to create more programs like the industrial maintenance program to bring together employers, where you have a half dozen or a dozen or even more companies that have the same needs, to be able to train them together, because that's a more cost-effective way to approach it.
Before this, from what I understand, the companies would be sending their employees out to Cleveland someplace and would not have them for that time. They'd take several weeks of training. They wouldn't have them there working and producing.
That's right.
They'd be paying them to go off to school someplace.
That's very true, and it is important that the downtime is minimal. That to the extent that you can do on-the-job training, that's obviously the best situation for both the employee and the employer. But you do have to take them to an A-Tech to do certain things. You just cannot do everything on the factory floor. So that's the second area. The third area is really about increasing the vitality of communities. And by that I mean really strengthening the economic assets of communities. You look at Conneaut. Conneaut has a great port. It has a wonderful beach and all kinds of resources. And I think there's a lot of opportunities, not only developing that from a recreational standpoint, but continuing to grow, what's going on in terms of the port itself and the industrial activities that are associated with that. Certainly capitalizing on our natural resources is important. When you think about tourism, and that is an important emerging industry for Ashtabula County. So I think it's the vitality of communities gets stronger when you build those assets. When we find important ways to really strengthen our beaches, to make them more useful, more attractive. So in that sense, what the Civic Development Corporation is doing with its new placemaking initiative is very important in strengthening Walnut Beach in Ashtabula and making similar investments, because the quality of place affects whether people not only want to come here from other places, but the people that reside in the county want to take advantage of those resources. And if you look at, I look at the opportunities there are many in Geneva, in Conneaut, in terms of again the lakefront, but also downtown. Downtowns have historically been a real identity building resource for people. So I think it's important that we bring our downtowns back. So the placemaking effort falls into the category of community vitality. The fourth area is really advocacy and marketing, and what that means is helping Ashtabula County to compete for the resources that it needs to get the funding that we need to accomplish our priorities from Columbus and from Washington, D.C. And certainly beginning to draw upon regional foundations and find a way to work with them to invest more in building economic and community development here. So the advocacy piece of it is really important. The marketing piece of it, I think, has two components. The first is internal marketing, which is helping all of us to, feel better and believe more strongly about Ashtabula County and its communities. And the second part is external marketing, which really has to do with trying to attract resources and businesses from the outside to come here. And both are necessary. And I think actually the internal piece is more critical. And to the extent that we believe in ourselves, others will believe in us. So it's that kind of a principle.
If an external source comes and starts looking around Ashtabula County and the people here are saying,
this is a bad place.
This is a bad place.
Right. Why
you're
should
making
they come here?
$9 an hour.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, and we have a lot of assets and resources. The trends of the long haul say that we have a lot of work to do in strengthening our population base. Certainly, we need new housing. That's critical to existing residents. It's critical to attracting managers and engineers, doctors that work at either UH or at Ashtabula County Medical Center. We need new housing opportunities. In that sense, I think Geneva has a really exciting new project that's coming online that I heard from the city manager there, Doug Starkey, about 3 weeks ago. He was telling me that they have a new executive housing development that's about to start up, which I think is really great because we are in short supply of that kind of housing. But it's important to look at economic development as a strategy to build the quality of life of communities. It's not just about the economics, it's not just about business, it's as much about communities and making them stronger. And so we have a balancing act, I think, anytime we do our job, certainly to develop and attract the right kinds of businesses that really have synergy and work in a positive way with building community. But it used to be that people chased jobs around America. That's what happened when a lot of the old industry moved from the north and from the Midwest to the south. And so people essentially followed them. But now you have a situation where it's really the jobs are following people, they're following talent. They want an educated workforce, they want quality of life, they want really high quality communities. So I think we need to capitalize on that because I think we have a lot to offer in that sense. So.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in high school back in I said 1920s yesterday, but that was a bit of a joke.
You look great for that, 1920s.
But they were telling you then that a high school education is not going to be enough. You're going to need training, vocational training, or college or something.
That's true.
So that was a few years. It wasn't 1920s, but it was a few years ago. I mean, I talked to some people. Last year I did a video on retired railway workers, and they would talk about after World War II, they get out and they get a job at the docks, and there'd be layoffs, so they get a job at this company or that company. And it would take maybe 2 days. Just walk, you didn't need a fancy resume or anything, and pretty soon you're working and making good money.
That's right.
And you didn't have to have some of them didn't even have a high school education because they went off and fought the war before they got their diplomas.
That's right.
So things aren't quite the same as they were in 1949.
No, they're not. And when you look at growing companies, it's important to think about businesses and generations. I mean, you mentioned 1949. That was roughly the time that molded fiberglass started here in this county. And that's a real success story for us over time, that this is a company that has reinvented itself, has moved from just working in the automotive industry to working in many different industries.
Adapt.
So you have to adapt.
Yes.
But I think that that's what's really critical, is to think, how are you going to get ready for the next generation? And I think what you said about education is critical. We worked with molded fiberglass and several other resources, including their employment firm, to basically do an on-site job fair, which really was about exposing people that wanted a job to this company, and really to meet the executives of the company, to have an opportunity to see what work is like there, to talk to other workers. And I think that that's what's really needed, because you know, if you're going to compete for workers, they have to really understand, you know, what they're getting into and what's the value of working for a great company like Molded Fiberglass. But you know, the educational piece of it is interesting. I think it matters less, you know, that you have, let's say, you know, an engineering degree. I mean, in some jobs you need an engineering degree, but what's even more important is that you have an educated way of looking at the world. That, you know, you're always evaluating possibilities. You're thinking critically about issues. That you have the ability to take a problem and turn it into an opportunity. That you know how to work with other people. That you know, the whole idea of teamwork it's essential in any business, in any industry. So all those things come together. And when you look at the success of people and their ability to grow careers, it's really their ability to acquire and integrate those things. The other thing that I think is important is that in many ways we've lost, I guess, appreciation for the role of work in our lives. We spend so much of our lives working, and a lot of times I think we feel like we just do it because it's a way to get a paycheck.
Sure.
But you know, the time that we spend working is huge, and in that sense, I think we need to come to that experience with appreciation, with gratitude, with an understanding that I'm going to do my best in really trying to give something meaningful to my fellow workers and to the employer. But I'm going to work at deriving meaning from whatever I do. So regardless of what the job is, to be able to find meaning that you're doing your best. And I think that we've kind of lost that, and we have to rekindle that, which is actually the reason why we worked with the Ashtabula Arts Center during the month of June. We organized and hosted a photography exhibit on work, Ashtabula County at work, and the variety of work, and the importance of work. And I think it was very successful. There were probably about 1,500 people that came to the exhibit. The opening event had about 70, 75 people. And the comments that we've received is this was really good. It was good because it number one showed us that there are jobs and there is work available in this county, and that work is meaningful. And I felt very good about that, to hear those that went to the exhibit to say that.
If you talk to some people, you just around the county, you're going to get the idea sometimes that the only jobs there are McDonald's, Dairy Mart, and you know the like, and that just isn't so. There are skilled jobs, and
there are a lot of management jobs. There are jobs, you know, in our hospitals for doctors and for nurses and allied health technicians. So there's a lot of jobs that are out there. The main thing is that we really need to, again, develop that workforce and talent.
One thing I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, you mentioned it, is retaining the talent that we have here. Because I think for a long time, when you saw there'd be outstanding students in Ashtabula County, and you kind of just in the back of your mind figured they're going to be living in New York or Los Angeles or Denver or something, and there's no way they're going to come back here because there aren't the kind of jobs that are necessary that would keep them here. And I don't know that that's the truth so much anymore.
Well, I'd like to share a few ideas on that, because you know, first of all, it's really a very dynamic trading process. Some young professionals, young talent, leave the county. Others come in. What's important, I think, is that we keep a strong enough base of young talent. So we end up exporting some, we import some. It's just the way it goes. The other thing is that I think a lot of young people go away after they get their education. They'll stay somewhere 3 to 5 years, have an experience someplace that may have been great in some ways, but in a lot of cases it's not affordable. Joel Kotkin has written several books. He's a researcher that's based out in California. He has a wonderful blog that is called New Geography, and he writes regularly about the mobility of millenniums and how the millennial generation in many cases has found it impossible to find opportunity to buy a house in California, so they're leaving. And one of the cities and regions that he finds to be attractive to this outbound young talent is Cleveland and Northeast Ohio, which includes Ashtabula County.
Sure.
So I think Joel Kotkin's observation is a very good one. There may be things that you like about your job, but if you make $100,000 in Los Angeles, the cheapest house you're going to be able to buy is probably about $1 million, and you're not going to get a mortgage for that. So think of what you could buy for, let's say $250,000 in Ashtabula County. It's huge. And so I think for folks that like small towns, and a lot of people do, Ashtabula County has that to offer. They don't want to be roped into the big city and the traffic congestion, all the noise, and all that goes. There's a lot of wonderful things that go with cities, but I think a lot of people prefer to live in small towns. And small towns
it's cool
are
at
very
first,
unique.
but then you kind of get burned out from it.
You do get burned out. Yeah, it's like I have to basically leave 35 minutes early to get a parking place in downtown.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier just to drive into a lot like yours here or someplace else, and and just go to work.
I mean, I paid $75 to park in downtown Toronto.
Oh yeah, I've been there. So, and that means you have to make a lot more money just to
absolutely
pay those kinds of costs. So yes, I think it is possible for us to both retain and attract talent. But what we need is an organized effort that does that. In our new Forward Ashtabula County plan, we dedicated that plan to children and to young people in this county. It's dedicated to them. In practically every meeting that I host on any subject, we have a meeting about our new economic and community dashboard on Friday. I think probably, well, the group, there's 12 people on the group, and I think 11 of them are under 40 or not much over 40, because it's really about them. And I think we need to surround ourselves with young people. We need to help bring them along, and we need to listen to them. They have great ideas. They're different ideas than certainly my generation started out with. I graduated high school in 1969, but I have to tell you that there's some compelling ideas that I've heard and seen and have been put in motion in this county. If you look at the advances that Leadership Ashtabula County, Laura Jones and her group have done, some amazing things. You have a new city manager here, Jim Hockaday, who is he's an amazingly talented guy. And I think he's just the right person to move Conneaut to the next level. I look at, you had mentioned earlier, Hattie, who works as part of our team. She's an incredibly talented young professional, and she's learned so much, and she's continuously acquiring new skills and knowledge and putting them to work. But I can give you many, many examples of people that I'm really impressed with. I'm impressed with Mark Wenchel, who's just moved from the Tourism Bureau to running the 503, becoming a finance guy.
It's too bad the guy isn't more enthusiastic, though. He's just not enthusiastic.
He's great. He's great.
He was in here, and he had to be in here. I usually don't have guests before 7 o'clock when I do the show, or not before 7, before 8 o'clock. Usually keep that for news and stuff. He had to be here before, because he had this, and this. So he had to be here 7:15. He's here, and he is ready to go, and he's ready to talk. and I'm kind of, okay, Mark, you talk.
He's a charged up guy.
Yes,
and
he is.
I appreciate that. We all need momentum in life. You know, when you think about not just the workplace, but every aspect of your life, you know, you need people that are positive. You need people that really motivate you, and people that wake you up. And I think certainly Mark is that kind of a person.
You just mentioned Hattie Grubke and I don't know what her name is.
Barnard.
Barnard, that's right.
Yes.
Thank you for getting. I remember her from high school. She went to school with my son, and my son, I mentioned a little bit off air, he worked in New York, Rochester, New York, for General Motors. The plant closed, and so he's got a master's in chemical engineering. He got it from Case Western. And he started looking around, and he could have moved with General Motors to Detroit. You know, and we looked there were houses you could get for $5, $20. He could have gone to Boston where things were really expensive. You're talking about the $1 million homes. And so finally on Facebook he says, anybody know of any engineering jobs in Ashtabula County? And Hattie replied, Crystal. So he got a job at Crystal. He had recently before that his wife had twins, so they have twin sons and a Henry, who's a little bit older than that. He's 6. The twins are now 4, and they knew that they had a 3-bedroom house in Rochester. They knew they would need a 4-bedroom house at some point once the kids got older.
Sure.
So they bought a house in North Kingsville. Cost less than a 3-bedroom in Rochester. He's working. He went through the program you're just talking about, Leadership Ashtabula County. He did that. He's been in several plays at the Art Center. My grandson, we took him to see his first play at the Art Center a couple of years ago. He just loved it, and he is now in his third production at the Art Center. That's great. He is in there with his father. And you know, when he moved back to Ashtabula County, I thought, because they had a wonderful gym, sports facility, community thing there, and a lot of parks and stuff, and a lot of kind of yuppie kind of things. And I thought, I don't know, but I mean, it's worked out well. And like I say, Henry is in his third production. He's actually in a play with his father. And I don't think that would have happened in Rochester. So, you know, you think a place like Rochester, New York, or some of these other places is having so much above what we have. But it really isn't that.
Well, what you're speaking to
and you know, you talk about growth partnership, a direct correlation on Facebook. Somebody from your office says, try Crystal, and it worked.
Well, you know, I first of all, going back to Hattie, she's just incredible. Hattie and Cindy have both been with the Growth Partnership. Well, I think Hattie has been there 10 years and Cindy has been there 16. They're just amazing. Incredibly talented. We work as a team, which is really, that's the best of possible ways to, you know, to see an organization work. But it's incredible, and Hattie has a great deal of energy and talent, and you know, she basically gets it done. It's incredible. So I think you need that, and yeah, I think there is opportunity here. When you were talking about your son coming here, your grandson and your son being in a was it a play? Yeah. Being in a play together at the Art Center, that says that there's opportunity here. There's opportunity for family. There's opportunity to do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And I think, again, that goes back to small towns, and that if you're interested and you're willing to work hard, you know, there's a space for you. And I think that that's important. It's not just the work, but there are things like the art centers. There are. There was a display by an artist from Lake County at the County Art Center a couple months ago. And she said that for displaying your artwork, there are 3 good places in northeastern Ohio. One's around Cleveland, the others are the Ashtabula Art Center and the County Art Center. So, you know, it's not like... What a wonderful thing. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I've always been active in the arts. I'm a photographer, a poet, and they've both been parts of my life for many years. My photography started when I was 9 years old, and my dad gave me his old Brownie camera. And I learned photography from those days, went on to study it at the University of Arizona, at Cleveland State, And so much you have to learn now continuously with all the new technology that's come
Yes.
out with digital photography. And poetry has been a part of my life since probably my sophomore year in high school. And really, Mr. Sharp was the English teacher, and I will never forget. He said, "Okay, it's not so important that you memorize the words in a poem so much as really learning to relate to the poem and use your own voice to bring it forward."
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, I really like poetry on that basis. But you say, well, what do these things have to do with economic development? They have everything to do with it, because they have to do with creativity, creative expression, which are things that are needed in the workplace. Art teaches us to think in different directions. When they say, you get out of the box, I mean, quite frankly, it allows you to do things and say things in non-conventional ways, and that's the heart of innovation. When you look at whether it's molded fiberglass, or whether it's Ashtabula rubber, or whether it's Conneaut leather, which is a really cool company. Conneaut leather I like. They're a design-driven company, and they have to work all the time at being creative to deliver new product to their customers. But it's essential. So when people say, "Oh, we don't need the arts," I say, wrong. I said, I can tell you from my own life that some of the best ideas that I've ever had have been, from being behind a camera and observing the world and seeing things that I've never seen from that perspective, and learning to see things from a different angle. And I do the same thing with problems and opportunities in my work life.
Well, if you're talking to somebody a company that may be coming into Ashtabula County, and they're looking at several areas, aren't they going to ask you, we want a highly trained workforce, and what do you have for them when they're not at work?
That's right. Quality of life amenities. And you mentioned the Art Center in Conneaut and in Ashtabula and Geneva. There's a lot of arts resources here.
Yeah.
Natural resources are great. I mean, this is one of the few counties that you can really explore and take advantage of open space and do just an incredible number of things. I was down in Andover yesterday, and I want to talk about this for a minute, because this is really a cool thing. I was going to say that they have pima tuning, which it brings people in from all over.
Yes.
And the town was very much alive on a Monday afternoon when I was down there, because there's so many people that love to be on the water.
Have you been to the exhibit there?
That's what I was gonna say. We set up a meeting. I went down and talked to Susan Hill, who's the librarian at Andover. And
I got a video on it.
Oh, great. And well, why do I have an interest in a human origins exhibit? It's because one of my undergraduate degrees was in anthropology.
Oh.
I was actually accepted at 4 of the best anthropology programs in the country. I chose to go into management because the practical side of me took over, but anthropology changed my life. Evolution and the whole concept of the deeper questions have always been inside me, and studying anthropology, working on archaeological digs, and so many other things really helped me to see life in a more integrated way, to be aware of the fact that everyone has a worldview. And it's actually okay that we have different worldviews, that we see things differently because we're unique human beings. But there are things that we have in common. And I think that that's what culture is all about. It's the shared ideals, it's the symbols, it's the material culture. That's what, archaeology is about, the material culture. It's about the tools. So the human origin thing intrigued me. So what do I think that whole thing is about? This is about a small town doing something big. And it just shows you that, you don't have to be a big city to bring really a valuable resource here. And I went through, they had pages and pages of people that signed up that, have been in to see that exhibit. And several people came in while I was there. I was going, wow.
Casey Kozlowski, the county commissioner, and I talked about that yesterday. This is a Smithsonian exhibit, and it's going to be in like 9 libraries in the country over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
The first place this exhibit went, and if you weren't watching yesterday, you should have been,
I should
was
have been.
Orlando. The second place is Andover.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these, there's only 9 libraries, and one of them is going to be 2 years from now. It'll show up, but it's in the second place was Andover, Ohio, after Orlando.
I think that's
so. That
cool.
is,
That's cool.
it really is.
And Susan Hill and her team down there deserve a lot of credit. And the Pymatuning Valley schools, I mean, obviously they
beautiful facility
provided this
there.
great facility.
Yes.
You know, so there's an example of where partnership works. And I think, you know, I think it's a unique, what do we call it? Well, you know, we have the after-school discovery program
Yes.
that Rich Recker runs. So this is an out-of-school, after-school opportunity for not just kids to learn, but adults and, you know, people from all walks of life.
And high caliber speakers too. Some from like Case,
Incredible.
Western, from
Incredible.
Kent State.
Incredible.
There.
Yeah. So it's important to be exposed to the world. You know, none of us want to be exposed to the world's harsh realities, even though we are. I mean, whether it's you know, a Gulf War vet that comes home that, you know, is really trying to overcome some serious issues. Those weren't things that that man or woman would have wanted to go out and seek, but it's part of learning about what the world is really about. Or somebody, you're talking about your son working in Rochester, you know, he knows something and has a perspective now that he didn't have before, and he brings that here to Ashtabula County. He brings that to Crystal. So I think reaching out to the world and understanding it, experiencing it is just so important. I grew up in Ohio coal country. I grew up in Martins Ferry and St. Clairsville, which...
Is that Jim Rhodes' land? Or?
Well, Jim Rhodes was from south of that. I think Lawrence County.
Okay.
The Ironton area, I think. It's interesting. I actually sat at table. I was very new to the economic development field, and sat in a meeting with Jim Rhodes when he was talking about how Ohio should capitalize on the Japanese automotive industry. So that takes you way back.
Yeah.
This is a man who had a vision. He and Jim Dirk, who was his economic development director, jumped on an airplane.
I knew him.
You did?
Yeah.
Wow, no kidding.
Well, he came here a lot because they were talking about putting a U.S. steel mill here in the 1970s.
You're right. You are absolutely right. Forgot about that.
Yeah.
But you know, he was the I think almost a prototype of an elected leader who believed he was not going to get done unless he did it. You know, he was so committed to doing things. I mean, I had a lot of admiration for the way he essentially got things done in economic development. But anyway, I kind of lost track of where we were, but I think going back to, let's go back to the Andover thing. It's really important that that we understand what's going on in the surrounding world, that we're not overwhelmed by it, that we formulate our own views of things. You mentioned Commissioner Kozlowski and what he's doing. Well, one of the things he's trying to do is to help us capitalize on the Republican National Convention down in Cleveland, and he's brought together you know, a rather diverse group of people to help do that. One of my assignments is find a way for children and young professionals to engage around the whole RNC experience, whether that's directly or indirectly. So I think there's opportunities, I think, to help young people and students in the county to understand what are the issues that are going to be at the forefront of the next presidential election. You know, what are their thoughts and feelings about it? You know, how can they begin to think more critically about those issues and what they mean to them? And you know, most importantly, what do those issues mean to me in terms of who I am as a human being. And I think that that's very powerful. So so it's important, I think, that we capitalize on these opportunities, that we reach out, bring new ideas in, that we become the producers of new ideas that we export. Whether it's going back to what molded fiberglass did with using fiberglass materials and composites as engineering materials, and lots of other people caught on to doing that.
They're big innovator there.
Or it's how do we create a brand of wine, which we have 21 wineries in this county. How do we do something that is truly unique in terms of wine and things that will stun California and the Napa Valley, but I believe we could do that. And that again takes creativity. It takes really thinking not only scientifically about these grapes and what you do with them, but also artistically of what you do.
Right. A little comment that you're talking about Andover, and two things come to mind there. Is one is I did a video. I've done a lot of videos, but have you been to the little theater there?
I have not.
There's a man there that operates that theater. Actually, now he's got a few theaters. But he managed a multiplex theater when he was in school. And I believe he lives in Mogador, Portage County. Mm-hmm. The Andover Theater was for sale a few years ago.
Okay.
He bought it, started renovating it. He works a full-time, now things have changed I think because I did this story a year ago last January, but at that time he was working a full-time job in Portage County, then driving to Andover and operating the theater in Andover. It's just a little theater on the square. It's just got one screen.
I've seen it.
But he's not only...
I've not been in it, but I've seen it from outside.
Well, it's, they do things for teens on dances and stuff. Sometimes they really talk about looking outside of the box. But they have first-run movies, and he digitized when other theaters just went out of business because they didn't want to pay for it. He likes the technology, and as I said, they do different programs. They've had different speakers and different things there. And here's a guy that doesn't live in Ashtabula County, but he drove here. I think now he's bought a couple more theaters, and now it's not so easy for him to work directly in one theater. But that's kind of a success story in Ashtabula County.
It is.
And I tell you, I like to take the grandkids to movies. And we would go to like Erie, and it would cost us $54 to go to the movies.
Sure.
And his movies, it's like $5 or $6 all the time. And so we have taken them down to Andover to the theater.
Oh, that's
so
great. Yeah.
That's one thing about Andover. Remember, the other thing is the causeway, going across the lake.
Yes.
I belong to a biking group, and one of my highlights was all of us going across there, and you can see the Pontoon Lake on either side, and there are places that you can park and fish. And I'm thinking while I'm doing this, because the wind's hitting your face, and it's really nice, and it's really beautiful. And I'm thinking, if this were someplace else, those parking spaces that are free, that nobody thinks anything about, it would cost you $20 to park there.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So
well, there's a lot of treasures like that. Once again, you just have to get out and find things and explore them.
The Harpersville Covered Bridge.
Yeah. Oh, that's a real treasure. I photographed that. Maybe it was back in early June. It was a Saturday morning. My wife and I came out, and we actually took a lot of photographs that day. But some of the best were right there, that bridge, and there was a fly fisherman that was standing, in the water, and he had a big one on the line. I saw it, and he lost it. It fell off, but. You hear all these fishing stories, but he really did. He had a big fish on his hook. But it's a beautiful place.
It is,
and I agree. That's a unique space. When you think about places that you really have a special feeling about, you get something special there. And I think it's really powerful. So. There's a lot to experience in Ashtabula County. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of reasons to be here. We just need to grow stronger, and we need the resources to do it, and we need to work together. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is teamwork, having the resources, picking the right priorities, and we can move Ashtabula County forward. I believe that.
Urban Meyer, the Ohio State coach who's from Ashtabula County, he was at Spire on July 1st doing the football camp for the kids. And at the end, he always gives a talk. And the talk was, we have a video of that. We have a video of the Harpersfield Bridge. But you can go to our website and see his talk. And the one thing he said is he has gotten to a point in his life, and with success, that he can make certain choices. And he's worked with students. I mean, it's Ohio State football, but they are kids, they're college students, and their parents. And he says he's at a point that when there are problems, and his team had problems, they lost 4 big games. He says people don't remember that, but they lost 4 big games. And you get parents and people that start criticizing, and he says they're part of the problem. And he said he's at the point where when those people come up to him, he says, just get away. I don't want to hear from you. I only want to hear from the people that are offering the solutions. The people with the problems, I don't need to contend with. I don't want to talk to them. Get away from me. And
I think that's true.
Yeah.
So, all of us are part of the solution. And I think every citizen in this county, and we have population just under 100,000, everybody has a role to play in economic development. I think the starting point is to make sure that they focus on their own career, job, family, certainly supporting the education of their children. I think that's when you look at what correlates most positively and most powerfully to economic growth over the long term. It's really educational attainment. So education, our schools here are incredibly important. Kent State University, Ashtabula, incredible resource. And I had the unique opportunity to give the commencement address at Kent State this year. And it was just a neat experience because watching, the different generations that were graduating with associate degrees, bachelor's degrees. It was an amazing thing, and I thought it was just fabulous.
We got a phone call coming in. Good morning, you're on the air.
Oh, I don't want to be on the air.
Oh, well, you called the wrong number.
Huh?
You called the wrong number. Okay. All right. I don't know what that was about. But
I thought we were going to get a question.
yes. We don't have too much time left, but if you want to get a question in, we can take it, 593-7181. But go ahead.
Yes, I think Kent State is an amazing resource, and we need to do whatever we can to keep that resource strong and vital here. Building a living community of students around that, connecting that to the Harbor District in Ashtabula, housing, all those things are incredibly important to the success of that college.
Let's see if we got. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, I was wondering, does he see any progress in Connie, like any kind of a factory, like maybe going in the empty GE building, or any kind of a grocery store or retail store like a Mark's or a Target or anything like that coming to our area?
Working with Jim Hockaday, your new city manager, on a couple of projects right now. I think there's some good news in terms of what General Aluminum is trying to do. We've been working closely with them. I mentioned earlier that Conneaut Leather has been growing and expanding, and I think they're doing great things for Conneaut. The correctional facility was out and met with the warden a couple weeks ago to talk about 2 things. The fact that he's got some job openings and is looking for some new employees. The second thing that I was excited about was to see the program that they have on entrepreneurship with the inmates, which I think is so important because many of these men and women are going to find difficulty getting a job in a traditional sense. Will find it easier to start their own business and to begin to build an enterprise of their own. So those are some examples of things. We continue to work on some of the longer term things. I think with Jim Hockaday in place, there's really a desire to really begin to strengthen city government as a partner for economic development at the local level and the county level. So I'm very high on Conneaut. I think there's a lot of opportunity here, and we're spending a lot of time out here.
Well, we really need, like, we need some kind of a retail store because, like since Kmart closed down, we have to go to Walmart or Erie or something, and if you want something quick, you have to run all the way to Ashtabula.
You're
It'd be
right.
nice if some type of retail, like a Target or a Marks or something with there. If you need something, you can go. So I just wonder if you see anything like that in the future.
Well, again, it's something that's been discussed with city government. We have not been working on anything of that nature because it's we've done a little bit of work with the Ashtabula Town Center Mall, but most of the retail level work gets done at the city level. We don't focus too much there.
Okay.
But rest assured that it's on the city administration's list because Jim had mentioned that as a priority, when we sat down not long ago. But I do appreciate what you're saying, and yes, we want to keep your retail spending dollars here.
It's just a shame that there's really not too many jobs, and like I say, you can't even go anywhere to buy something quickly.
Yes, you're right, and you've got a great city. It's a lot like the city I grew up, which was Martins Ferry, which is along the Ohio River.
Yeah.
So very similar.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.
There are some little things, but like the ice cream place that it's kind of interesting in the old church. Like I say, the way it's decorated, there's a pulpit up there, and they've got ice cream that they make themselves. So it's
Sounds
not
good.
Yeah, it does. it's not exactly like Target, which would be nice to have someplace.
Right.
I mean, living in town, it's nice that you can go buy a belt someplace without having to go to
Yes.
the mall or something.
Yes. I think so.
But there are different things. You've got the theater that opened here in the old church, and that, which is a nice thing. And you've got some new restaurants. Somebody on Facebook was talking about, I haven't been to town for a while, and we're going to go to restaurants, and people are giving ideas. Chinese restaurant, Mexican restaurant, the restaurant down at the harbor.
Yeah, great food. Great barbecue.
Yes. And I mean, there were a lot of different suggestions. One person said McDonald's, he should have been hit in the head, but other than that.
Yeah. Well, it's important for all of us to work together. We need Conneaut. Conneaut needs Ashtabula County.
Yeah.
We are all part of the same fabric in that sense. And I think actually there are opportunities, and already Conneaut for many years has been looking across the line in Pennsylvania, Erie for connections.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Some people say, well, you're supposed to represent the economic interests of Ashtabula County, and that's true. But I think there are opportunities, particularly for Conneaut, but also for Andover, that shares Pymatuning and a lot of that resource area in common with Pennsylvania. Why not couple these things across state lines? Economies and businesses don't recognize political boundaries.
Yeah, unfortunately, we got to wrap this up, but unfortunately, we do recognize those boundaries sometimes. It's like, but we are the last building in Ohio before you go into Pennsylvania. And
That's right. Yeah.
And sometimes on the iPad, I'm looking at the weather, and it says Conneaut. Like one day it said like Conneaut 31, it was in the winter. And all of a sudden it says West Springfield 33.
Huh.
Because somehow the wind shifted or whatever, and I thought we were in West Springfield, Pennsylvania. So we just gained 2 degrees.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great story. Yeah. So yeah, it's important that we work together. The region really is our economy. That's the real economy. Ashtabula County has an economic base that's a part of a regional economy. So it's really important that we keep that in mind. We share a lot of the same industries, especially when you look at plastics and the concentration here with many other places in Northeast Ohio and in Erie, Pennsylvania.
We're also, later this week, we're going to have people from the Corridor 534.
Oh, good.
They're going to be in on Friday talking about what they're doing for economic development.
It's very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's going to be a coordinated approach so that you can capitalize on the right opportunities is going to be so critical. But what we call corridor-based economic development is a very good strategy. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
We covered a lot of
Appreciate you having me.
territory.